Sorry, I wasn't watching the clock. This meeting will now come to order. Mr. Tarina, or Dr. Tarina, will you lead us in the pledge, please? I'm sorry, do a roll call first. I'm not looking at my sheet here. Okay. Mrs. Sender, will you call the roll? No, she's not.
Mr. Gambiani?
Here.
Mr. Matheson?
Here.
Mr. Paulson?
Here.
Mrs. Swanson?
Here.
Mr. Broman?
Here.
Mrs. Intihar?
Here. Dr. Tarina, now will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening. I'm Brian Trina, principal at WIESBROOK Elementary School, and I'd like to welcome the Board of Education members, Dr. Schiller, his cabinet members, District 200 faculty, staff, and community members to WIESBROOK Elementary School. On behalf of the WIESBROOK Elementary School Tigers and community, I'd like to welcome everyone, and also hopefully you feel our motto tonight is tremendous to be a Tiger. I'd like to begin by extending my congratulations to members and our students who are here from the Wheaton Wormwood South robotics team who are being recognized tonight. And also it's so good to see so many faces of former colleagues of mine here from Wheaton Wormwood South High School. Welcome to WIESBROOK. As a Board of Education, over the last 5 years, you've made a significant investment in technology in District 200. At WIESBROOK, we have spent the last year utilizing technology to enhance and support our instructional practices. John Wooden once said, "Failure is not fatal. Failure to change just might be." Evidence hit me with two stories I'll tell you very quickly. Back in December, I went on vacation with my parents' house in Florida, and I have a son, Jonathan, who's a junior at Cambridge High School. We were sitting on the couch watching TV, and he said, "Hey Dad, I found this on TV and I thought that you would like it." So instantly a YouTube video pops up on the TV, and it was a history about the reform of education. It was fascinating, it was actually funny at the same time, some of the humor that was in the video. So I asked him, "How did you do that?" Because it was just instantaneous. And of course, he had it on Twitter, he had a link, and it was a smart TV, and Dad, you should have known how to do this. It was just so fast. Then just this week, I got hit again, and it really was square between the cross eyes. I had a 5th grade student who dropped a note in my mailbox. And on the note, he asked if he could meet with me. And he wanted to meet with me because he said he's developed a WIESBROOK app. I have since seen the WIESBROOK app from one of our teachers, and it's pretty phenomenal. The student also works for Nintendo. And he's a 5th grader here at WIESBROOK. Pretty fascinating some things. My point is, it's the kids and the world they live in, it's the way that they learn, it's what they know, and we better change to it. So our presentation tonight is to show how WIESBROOK, we're carrying on Vision 2018 in one of the 4 areas of the Board of Education's focus, and that's integrating technology into the curriculum. This could not happen without a talented, caring, and dedicated faculty. I say it all the time, privileged as a principal to serve here at WIESBROOK Elementary School. I'm the best faculty in the world, and they make all the learning possible happen here at WIESBROOK. I'd like to recognize 2 of them right now. Sitting to my left here, I have Carolyn Meisey, our LC director, and also Bob Harskins, our 5th grade teacher. They're both very into technology and integrating into the classroom. I did one of those principal things where I tapped them on the shoulder at the last minute and asked them, "Can you do this?" And really, yes, they can do it, and they're a little nervous, but they'll do a wonderful job. They're doing great things in the classroom to support your goal and your vision here for Vision 2018. So, Carol and Barb.
Good evening. Barb and I are excited to talk to you about technology and integrating that into the classroom. At WIESBROOK, we're doing a lot of that here. We have a Google Fit team that Barb and I both serve on, and we're developing professional development so that our teachers are learning about Google and they're learning about any kind of technology that can enhance student learning at WIESBROOK. I personally am collaborating with teachers to incorporate technology and learning standards along with those learning targets that the teachers have planned. Our students are engaged, should wait to go.
I'm sorry.
It's not coming up.
That's
I
technology.
love technology.
It's loading.
There we go. Come on a second.
Here we go. Slowly but surely. There.
Okay.
I'm sure we're presenting technology and I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, that's beautiful.
There we go. Thank you. Okay. Our students are engaged in mastering targets and standards with the help of technology. Right now I'm in second grade. I use Destiny, which is our library program, to find a good fit book for every single student at their perfect level, and we even went with their choice of interest also. Those students had interactive smartboard lessons from the teacher and I. Students were able to come up with their text. At this particular lesson, we were learning about new vocabulary words, so they picked a vocabulary word, they brought their text up, they showed the entire class how in that text they used context clues, and everybody was learning right along with each other. They're using laptops to take that same project, that same book, to develop a summary, and then through an avatar app on iPad called Telegami, they're going to tell their summary. They're able to develop a character based on their book. They pick the emotion of the face, the hair color, everything about that character to fit right along with their book that they've read at their level. And then we will have an iPad showing of every single student's summary in the library on our new smart TV. So students will be able to share with each other. So they will use laptops, iPads, smartboard, and then our big screen TV with that project. Fourth grade is using Google Research, and they're all set up with Google Classroom. They're researching plants, presidents, animals, and they're sharing their documents that they're creating with each other, and then the teacher, so that they get that quick feedback. Barb is going to show you a little bit about, she's doing the same thing in her classroom. Fifth grade, we had a QR code where they used iPads to go along with QR codes, and they looked at summaries to choose good fit text, and then individual books, so they actually used the iPads, scanned the QR code, they could find out exactly what that book was about, if it was at their good fit level, and they could choose that book or move on to another QR code to pick out their text. So at WIESBROOK, Google Classroom and the Google Drive that the kids are really becoming familiar with is definitely providing alternative ways for the students to interact with each other and then our curriculum and our standards that we're teaching here. Barb is doing an amazing job. She's extremely humble, but she has her kids very involved in Google and the Drive, and she has some specific examples of that to show tonight. Thank you.
To begin with, I just want to share, we're trying to get the kids familiar with their Google Drive. We are hoping, and our goals are to make it user-friendly. It is a 24/7 connection between classroom and home. And so we spend a lot of time utilizing this. And one example is my daily homework checklist is a live document. So for some students who need a little extra support, this is shared with them, and each night they have the live version, the live copy of exactly what we're doing, in case anything was forgotten. So they're able to access this at home, and we've gotten them very comfortable with getting into their Drive and being able to pull up documents that were shared. So this is one example. And then back in the recent, go to recent, thank you. Another example, and this one was a cross grade level. We mix our kids up once a week, the entire fifth grade, with something we call blending. And we really work on close reading strategies, breaking apart text, and we all have common goals. So a really interesting piece is we're comparing nonfiction text in all 4 classrooms. We're working on the exact same article at the exact same time, commenting, pointing out differences. And so these kids were interacting and watching other kids from different classrooms in the same building comment and find different pieces of the article and compare and contrast these 2 pieces of informative text. So this was a live, really cool experience for the kids to interact with each other within different classrooms. So we are using this in school in the Google Documents. All right, so Carolyn, if you can come back out and hit my classroom tab up on top. Okay, so after the first of the year, we launched our Google Classrooms, and so I have two set up. All of us fifth grade classes have our own classroom, anyone that knows me. My stars spent all day in Hollywood. So that's the theme, and this is really like our old teacher website, except it's more accessible. It supplies links, interactions, kids can comment, ask questions, comes back and forth. I have a whole About tab, which I won't go into, but the whole About tab has any information the kids may need for what we're currently doing. Egypt has been our big focus, so most of the information in my About tab, links, documents, assignments, anything that they may need to enhance learning or to add to projects we're doing is stored under the About tab. I have all kinds of website bibliography information, and then links, videos, everything previewed. We set up a page for the kids to go and have easy access to, whether they're at school or they're at home. It's always available to them. Under Stream, Carolyn, if you click on the Stream tab up at the top, this is where I stream everything from announcements, like Valentine's Day coming, and if you scroll down, keep going all the way down, Carolyn, to Egypt Rough Draft. This is all the assignments that were part of this entire project. If you go down to Rough Draft, and I know you may have seen this at the middle school, click on the Rough Draft Writing tab. Yeah, click right on that. And if you can scroll down to Ty Giordano. So as the kids are typing, we taught them how to go in, we taught them how to create these documents, we taught them about research, outlining, the entire project. So click on Anubis, see to the left there. He created a document, and I'm using this one as an example because this is still in working order. As he's working, as all of the kids were working, I was able to give instant comments and ask questions, and then he could reply back to me and ask for clarification. So this constant feedback in class, the entire project from day one to completion was all done in school. So it was a chance for the kids to grow as writers without too much parent interaction and a lot of revision and editing going on between the child and the student or child and a child. And they were able to ask for other students and share their documents. We taught them all of that on how to share their documents with other students and what it looks like to be a peer editor or to help somebody revise a piece of writing. So this is a work in progress. And if you go up to the Tools tab, Carolyn, this is another really cool feature. Go to Research. So if the kids, after they have done most of the research, if they needed anything to support their paper that they're missing, they can pull the internet up right to the side. So if they were to type in Anubis, they can pull up images, they can pull up sites, and they can get some more information off of the websites at their fingertips right there. We showed them how to cite documents because with this tool, it does it for them. So we had them create a bibliography page, but we also showed them how to get it right into their documents at the same time because this is out there and it's at their fingertips. So this was an example of research, revising, editing, pulling writing in. They did public speaking, they created a board, so it was a really nice project. And then one final thing, and then I'll stop. If you go back up to my classroom, as well as my, I don't know, let's see. Yeah, go to the left where it says rough draft arrow left. See that arrow? Click to the left of that. Nice. And then that bar up there where you were just at, the lines at the top upper left. Thank you. Click on WIESBROOK. So I've also created a classroom for literacy, and so we're doing a novel study. So this invite went only to the students who are doing the novel study with me. And this, scroll down just a little bit. I'm using this in a little bit different way. Keep going down just a little bit. Okay, and see where it says 27 comments? Okay, click on that tab. I'm using this as a literacy thread, so I'm teaching the kids how to respond to questions that have to do with any topic relating to literacy. theme, character traits, things that we're teaching, and we're teaching them how to put it into a certain format, check their work, making sure they're accountable, and it's public, so it goes to only the kids in our class, but everyone in our class can see it. Great teaching tool. First one up there has some great content. The first thing the student said to me is, oh my gosh, I didn't use capital letters. So it's a great hands-on teaching tool. What I've noticed is that some of the students who are really reserved and quiet in class are the first ones up there. Because you know how it is when you are using some type of technology. Your real voice comes out, and I see that. And then I also see other kids learning from other students. You know, it's okay by the end if you really realize that somebody didn't copy it, but they used their style. They're learning from other kids. It's so nice. It's so beautiful to see. They're able to comment on each other's. We talk about proper ways to comment. We have talked about going back, checking your work. So it's just a great teaching tool for them, and it's a great way to respond and get kids interacting with literature and interacting with each other. So anyways, those are a few examples of how we're using them in 5th grade, and thank you.
So as I stated earlier, our motto at WIESBROOK is "It's tremendous to be a Tiger," and hopefully you felt that when you heard two of our wonderful teachers here, Barb Hoskins and Carol Micey, speak tonight about what's happening in our classrooms and how technology is actually being infused to support our instruction. So I end tonight by saying thank you to the Board of Education for your support and the tools to help bring District 200's Vision 18 2018 to life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian and Barbara and Carolyn. Thank you for embracing technology the way you have and for getting our students acclimated to it, although I know sometimes our students push us, but that's a good thing. And thank you for using it to really teach. It's amazing what you're doing. Thank you so much. Dr. Schuler? Okay, we're at modifications to the agenda. Are there any modifications to the agenda that board members wish to make? Okay, now we're on to recognitions and achievements. Dr. Schuler.
Thank you. I had a great fortune a couple weeks ago. Mr. Claypool invited me to come over to Warrenville South because the robotics team was getting ready to introduce their robot in a couple of competitions. And so I took Mr. Claypool up on the offer, but I got to tell you, and I think it's part of what has sort of driven the recognition tonight, what I saw when I went into the classroom and visited with the team was something that went far beyond just a robot that had been programmed and ready for a competition. When I went into the room, what I saw was an incredibly engaged team and group of students, very individualized in terms of what they were working on, yet very interdisciplinary in terms of the work and pulling it together. And I had the good fortune of meeting an amazing student named Alicia that immediately took charge when I went into the room and made sure that I knew everything that was going on. She made sure I knew every aspect of what was involved in the competition, and candidly since that time has kept me very up to date on the progress of the team. And their goal at the time, they were very goal driven, was to qualify to get to state, something they narrowly missed the year before, and I'm pleased to bring them here tonight to the board because they did achieve kind of that first milestone goal in their competition. So I'm not going to steal any more of the thunder of the robotics team, but Alicia and I think you've got Jack, thank you. You've got Jack with you. Would you guys please come up and tell us a little bit about what you've been working on, and then we want to recognize your fine efforts.
Thank you for having us once again. We have a short video introducing you to what all this is about. First Robotics, which is the organization that runs the competitions that we participate in, showing you both the competition side, but also the aspects of volunteering and community service.
This is the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl of smarts, that is. It's a life-changing competition. It's kids having fun, competing, working together to dream up, design, and build robots.
It's just an exhilarating feeling. It's like I'm using power tools.
They're having the hardest fun they'll ever have. And they're becoming our next generation of engineers and innovators. First, come out! For inspiration and recognition of science and technology. My teachers were some of the greatest influences on my life. By challenging and trusting me, these mentors got me to understand that I could do anything I put my mind to. First mentors are changing kids' lives every day. Professional engineers, teachers, parents, teaming up with young people not just to build robots, but to build confidence and self-respect.
I'm around people that I can get along with, that we can talk computer lingo with.
FIRST was founded by one of our greatest inventors, Dean Kamen. Dean saw that kids mostly look up to sports heroes and movie stars.
So we said, if we've got a culture now that's obsessed with sports and entertainment, let's inspire these kids to be big thinkers the same way Shaquille O'Neal can inspire them to spend dozens of hours a week bouncing a ball.
Our president agrees.
Scientists and engineers ought to stand side by side with athletes and entertainers as role models. And here at the White House, we're going to lead by example. We're going to show young people how cool science can be.
250,000 kids aged 6 to 18 compete at all different levels. In 2 FIRST Lego Leagues, the FIRST Tech Challenge. Then at the high school level, the FIRST Robotics Competition.
The only difference between this sport and all the others is every kid on our teams can turn pro. There's a job out there for every one of these kids.
Students who take part in FIRST are 50% more likely to go to college and twice as likely to major in science or engineering.
I definitely know that I want to pursue engineering.
Once they've tasted what the power of knowledge is, that it can be fun and rewarding, they won't go back.
There's no doubt FIRST works.
10 or 15 or 20 years from today, some kid in those stands will have cured Alzheimer's or AIDS or cancer, or built an engine that doesn't pollute. Look at these kids. They're the future.
I feel like I can go and do anything I want to do because of this program.
Someone took the time to guide and inspire me. It changed my life. Take some time. Go to usfirst.org.
All right, so that
This is the Super Bowl.
so that kind of introduced what FIRST is about. Once again, I'm Jack. I'm a senior at South, and we founded this team last year because we were interested in creating an engineering opportunity at school. We had thought there was like math club and other stuff in the area of mathematics, but in science and engineering, we were interested in finding opportunities. So FIRST Robotics met our standards, and we formed a team. Last year, we were a rookie team, so we are very new to the competitions. We were semifinalists at our local competition, which was good for a rookie team, and this year, obviously, we've achieved a lot more, and we're very satisfied with that. So Alicia will talk a little bit more about the awards and the season so far.
Hi, I'm Alicia Garnash. I'm the captain of the Wheaton-Warrenville South High School robotics team, and I love robots so much. I talk about them all the time. No, like, you think I'm joking. I walk up to random people and I'm like, hey, yeah, robots. So, anyways, before I tell you about the awards that we've done, it mentions in the video several different levels of robots, or robotics. at first, so I want to clarify that a little bit. So for the younger kids in elementary school till about 3rd grade, they have junior FLL. So that's little tiny robots, and it's introducing, again, younger generations of kids to engineering and science and technology and getting them involved when they're at that impactable age. And then there's FLL, which actually we have a team that's kind of through Madison and Edison. So that was started this year as a branch off of our team. And that is a little bit bigger. Again, it's till about 7th grade, so 3rd to 7th graders can participate in that, and it's really good. They learn to program and code. They also have a project that they do. So they go out and they have like a challenge every year, and they have to solve a challenge. So this year it was education. They had to like make education better. And then FTC is the level that we're in. That's 7th graders through high school, and it's pretty awesome. That one, you build and design your own robot again. It's out of metal, not Lego pieces. We use Tetrix and Matrix pieces. Pretty cool. And then we also hand make some of our pieces. And then FRC, which was the big, huge robots you saw in there, that it's all made completely by the team members, or sometimes they'll have sponsors like Caterpillar, who they'll send a CAD, computer automated design, out to them, and they'll make the piece and send it back. So that's the different levels of robotics. Again, FTC. Our very first competition, which was at the Chicago Math and Science Academy, we won the highest award that you can get, which is Inspire. So basically that means you're a model team. So that includes not only your robot performance, your community outreach, your engineering notebook, which is this, I'll tell you about that later, but also just your engineering design and actual performance. And then our second competition, which was at the, yeah, it was Rotolo Middle School in Batavia? Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, okay. I can never pronounce it. That one we won the second highest award because you can't win the same award at the same level of competition. So we won the second highest, which was talking about the engineering process and designing your robot. Yeah. So, okay. So what we've done, now that we're going to state, we had to do a little bit of fundraising and gain some sponsors because we did not know how expensive more parts were and entry fees were. Our robot is about $3,000. Yeah. So the kit of parts is about $2,000, and then since then we've added parts. It might actually even be more expensive than that now. But anyways, so we've got some sponsors on here already. There is Tiger Paws, OgSource, and Chicago Motor Cars. Yeah. So all of them are sponsoring us so far. But if you guys know any other sponsors or people, I promise I'm not coming begging for money, but I kind of am. Anyways, so the robotics competitions are pretty expensive, especially when you include room and board. The state competition is one day, but we're hoping we're not going to stop there. We're going to go to super regionals and then hopefully world. Super regionals is about 3 days long, and world is a whole week. So it's kind of costly. Yeah. Okay. So talking about our engineering notebook, what we do is this.
All right. So the engineering notebook is a requirement every year. It outlines the engineering process and what you have done throughout the year, both building the robot and also community service outside. So some examples of what we've done are we went over to the DuPage Children's Museum, and we met with a bunch of kids that were interested in engineering, along with some teams from University of Chicago who had some pretty giant robots, which was cool. We also have done FLL, which is first, they're the Techno Turtles. So Alicia and her mom have been have been leaders in that area. So.
Hold on. Okay. I'm like more the outreach coordinator. Jack is more like he builds it, and I build it too. But yeah. Anyways, so I know more about the outreach. So we also went to the Madison Elementary School Explore More Day. It was pretty cool. Mr. Callahan got to drive around the robot a little bit. We're hoping to go to several more elementary schools. I think we're going to Jefferson, Whittier, and WIESBROOK, and Madison again. So that's super exciting. What we want to do is we want to hit kids in their target age, which we believe is elementary school, leading up into a few bits of, like a few first grades of middle school. Anyways, that's when kids don't know what they want to be yet and are still able to kind of grow to love technology. We also entered a really cool contest for a 3D printer. It was an EcoCycle 3D printer, which is reusable cartridges so you can reuse the plastic. And it's pretty cool, we won that. So we're currently working on trying to get that fixed because, yeah, it's new technology that we ourselves have to learn. We also went and visited the Whittier 5th grade classes. So we went around and talked to all 3 classes. And we have also been to Edison Middle School. We went there last Wednesday. And we talked to their engineering class about robotics because, again, these kids are going to be able to be involved in it next year. We're hoping also to start a team at Edison. We're thinking about using a VEX competition. It's not 3 first. It's a different branch of competition. But since they're already using VEX parts and VEX robotics, then that would again translate into another kind of robotics competition. We have also done, we also are part of an FRC team, so some of the kids at the FTC team go into the level up, which is those huge robots you saw. So some of the kids commute out to Illinois Math and Science Academy basically every day. So you finish robotics here and then go out to IMSA for robotics there. And it's again just gaining that next level of engineering experience and hands-on. We also had the physics club at Wheaton Warrenville South, the physics class that's taught there. They came and again, they're middle school kids who are learning physics. And so we brought them in and showed them again what they can do when they get to South. We're also going to the Museum of Science and Industry in April for their robotics week, which is super exciting. And we're also going to try to go to the Adler Planetarium. And that is, again, a really cool opportunity that we have. A few other parts of the engineering notebook that I want to highlight. There is, you have meeting summaries. So every day you have somebody who types up all the goals that are for the next meeting, and then also like all the stuff that happened at the meeting, and we take pictures. So there's accomplishments that you did at the meeting, and then there's also reflections and goals. And then also we are super into like drawing out your ideas. If Jack will tell you, I come in and I'm like, if you have an idea, you draw it out. Don't tell me, put it on paper. And what we do is we document that, and every single idea, no matter how stupid it is, it gets put in this engineering notebook. That way we can learn from our mistakes, and again, it fuels our future endeavors.
All right, so I'll tell you a little bit about the competition first and kind of our objectives for the robot throughout the year. So basically, as you might have seen in the video for the first tech challenge, you have a 12 square foot arena. And this year was, the game was called Cascade Effect. So we had these wiffle balls that would be distributed out throughout the field, and then these plastic clear PVC pipes that you had to lift the wiffle balls up into, and for every centimeter you receive so many points. And then there's also end game, which is at the end, if you accomplish some of these pretty difficult tasks, you get bonus points. And also in the beginning, we have something called autonomous, where the robot is not driver controlled, right? So it just goes and it does its thing. Hopefully it works. Our take on the challenge this year was using something called a linear actuator, which is just basically an arm that moves up and down, so in the vertical direction. And so that we have 2 of those on the side, and then we had a main bucket. So that's what actually lifts the wiffle balls up to the height of the goals. And we have a collection method in front right here that spins and collects the wiffle balls. All of this is done through, all this wiring is done by us. It uses these things called motor controllers, so they pretty much just make the motors smart. So we can say turn on and turn off, or if you detect this, do this. And so we program through what are called NXT bricks, which are Lego Mindstorms. Ever heard of that? And we use something called Robot C. So our robot collects them through the front, lifts it up, and then this whole bucket will dump backwards and dump them into the goal. So that's our take on the challenge this year. It's really interesting to see when you go to these competitions, to see how other groups have tried to solve the problems. So yeah, and another cool thing we did this year is we thought most teams have a name for the robot. So in honor of our science teacher for physics, we called it Todd, and it was kind of nice. So a nice touch on the robot. Yeah. So that's kind of how our competition is and how we try to solve the problem at hand.
Also, in Tree South fashion, at the very first competition, which is the only competition they had the Spirit Award, we did win the Spirit Award. So we have these noisemakers, and we have written our team number. So every team is branded by a number, and that's how they distinguish it, because there's a lot of names out there. Some of them are kind of crazy. So they have to have some way to organize all the teams. So our team number is 7301. Yeah. And so we have one of these for each of you guys. And we hope to see you guys all at state. It's at IIT. All of you guys, not just them. It's at IIT. It's next weekend, so yeah, it's coming up pretty quickly. And we're hoping that we can get everything coordinated and ready in time. And we're hoping that we're going to be able to advance to super regionals and from then on to world, which would be very exciting.
Before you guys disappear on there, so again, I have been so impressed with the work that you have been doing, and I will assure you, as actually we've got a couple people here in the audience that are here tonight because they heard me talk about you guys at the Lions Club meeting the other day. We do have a check for you that came in from the Wheaton Rotary as we shared with them the fact that you're looking for sponsorships. They did give you a $100 check and want to sponsor your efforts as well. We're not going to shake your hand because I don't want you taking one hand off that $3,000 robot.
Thank you guys so much for having us.
Wow. That was very impressive, very impressive. Thank you so much, and best of luck to you. Okay, next item on the agenda are public comments, and I'm sure there no one has signed up to speak for public comments on agenda items. So after that, we will have the superintendent report. Dr. Stevens.
Thank you. I've got just a couple of things that I wanted to share with the board tonight under superintendent report. There are a couple of handouts in your green folder that go with a couple of these items. The first is in regard to park. I think I've shared with the board pretty regular updates and communication on park. Candidly, some of the issues, frustrations, challenges that we've had keeping up with what has been kind of a wildly moving train. I guess the one thing I can share with the board since the last meeting, the one new development that came up is that the state kind of did alter course again and give school districts an opportunity to elect to test via paper instead of via technology. We had originally planned to test electronically in grades 3 through 8 and then paper at the high school level. And so we did make that determination. I shared with the PTA Council this morning. We didn't do that lightly. There was a great deal of care that went into really looking at what made the most sense for us, and candidly, the fact that that was an opportunity even made available at the very last minute really kind of signaled to us that there are folks that have some concern with how I think the technology is going to work on that. So we did make that choice. I guess at the end of the day, everybody in the state is a little bit of a guinea pig with park this year, but candidly, if that system doesn't work, the place where that's going to be felt most readily, unfortunately, is with our students and our staff as they're administering that assessment. And so I don't want to have that disaster happen. If there's a great deal of stress that comes on this system, let others figure that out, and we'll test electronically next year if it's still around. I did include in your green folder, though, a copy of a document that we've developed to share with all of our legislative officials that are making decisions around park that highlights all of the concerns that we do have, and candidly what we would hope to see in any kind of a system of assessment. So I want to make sure that the board members saw that, because we will be down in Springfield again next week for a couple of Vision 2020 meetings, and sharing that any chance that we get. Senate Bill 16 that we talked about quite a bit earlier in the year is back. It is now called Senate Bill 1. I don't know a lot of the details in terms of exactly how Senate Bill 1 is going to play out for school districts. I do know that there have been some changes made to that bill. Some of the changes directly as a result of the feedback that Senator Menard did hear from folks, but it's same sponsor. Senator Menard has brought it back. The one thing I've not yet seen out of it, though, is an actual impact analysis. So haven't seen a breakdown yet of the actual impact to individual school districts. I would anticipate that that would be coming out again, hopefully shortly, before that is significantly discussed, certainly on the floor in either of the houses. And again, I would fully anticipate that we will be very active in making sure that our staff, our internal and our external communities fully understand hopefully what's contained in that. The one other thing that I'll mention, though, around funding is, as we were talking a lot about Senate Bill 16 the last go-around, there was a lot of discussion around, so if not Senate Bill 16, then what? What is the solution to a funding system that's not working? There is, through the Vision 2020 plan, a model that is gaining some interest. It's called an evidence-based funding model. I did also give you in your green folder a PowerPoint that has a little bit of information about what an evidence-based funding model looks like, and I don't want to try to explain it candidly here, because I won't do it complete justice. But in short, the concept is, let's put dollars toward the things that we know work, and let's also make sure that that dollars, that a couple of things happen. One, that money from the state is flowing only when we know that there is at least a floor of the local effort that goes into the funding model. One of the concerns through Senate Bill 16 was the fact that there were a number of provisions in there in terms of how the city was impacted, and candidly on a local effort, meaning local tax effort, the city of Chicago has a very low local tax effort, much lower than surrounding areas do. And so the evidence-based funding model attempts to address some adequacy pieces, as well as address, I think, some of those inequities within funding systems as well. I think it's something that's interesting to watch. Two other things then that I'm gonna, actually three other things. Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, Tahar, Mr. Farley, and I, as well as Mrs. Swanson through the Illinois Association, are going to be traveling to Springfield for a leadership summit or alliance around Vision 2020. That is the plan that most of the associations have moved forward in an attempt to bring about some education reform efforts that we can drive the conversation around in the field. So we're excited to try to learn a little bit more about that early next week. March the 23rd, I will be at the Community Outreach Center in Carroll Stream. They're hosting an open house. We've got a large contingent of our student population that live in the apartment complexes in Carroll Stream, and so Donald Robinson and the Outreach Center have asked if we could do kind of a community open house up there. We're excited to do that. And then finally, just before this meeting tonight, I had an opportunity in Winfield to listen to the village president of Winfield deliver the Winfield State of the District meeting, and so it was a nice opportunity just to connect with the friends in Winfield and hear a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on Thursday. This past Thursday, I attended the park presentation that Faith Dahlquist and Brian Trina presented to parents here at WIESBROOK. It wasn't for just WIESBROOK parents, it was for district parents, and I think about 40 to 50 parents showed up. I thought it was a wonderful presentation, very thorough, very informative, to give a background about the park and the challenges it presents to all of us, including District 200. I understand you may be giving that presentation again, is it's still somewhat up in the air about whether that's going to happen or not. But it was very informative. I applaud both Faith and Brian. If I could just have a point of privilege here. WIESBROOK is my adopted school, and I had 4 kids go through the school, and we had a child here for 14 straight years, so I had a lot of fun fairs to attend. Not the same child. No. So I really enjoyed the presentation by the teachers here. And we've always had a wonderful staff here, as we have in all of our schools here. But I wanted to just point that out. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Schuler, Mr. Roman. Now we're on to the consent agenda. We have 10 items on the consent agenda this evening. Acceptance of gifts from the Lowell PTA. Acceptance of a gift to Sandburg Elementary School from Motorola Solutions. Acceptance of a gift to Sandburg Elementary School Library Learning Center. Approval of revised policy 7.60, student residency, for public review and comment. Approval to post high school health textbook for community review. Approval of the resolution to transfer funds from working cash to education fund. Approval of a resolution to transfer funds from the working cash fund to the IMRF fund. Approval of bills payable and payroll. Approval of minutes January 14, 2015 open, January 28, 2015 committee of the whole, January 28, 2015 closed session, and approval to destroy recordings of closed sessions prior to September 2013 as allowable by law. Approval of personnel report to include employment, resignation, retirement, and leave of absence of administrative certified, classified, and non-union staff. Are there any items that board members wish to have removed from the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, then I would like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Vroman.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Paulson. Is there any discussion?
I just had one question on items 6 and 7. I noticed we're basically moving all of the money out of our working cash fund into the education fund and the IMRF fund. Is that a customary process this time of year? And if so, what's the cost of that?
Yes, that is a customary process as the board's aware. We do have a fund balance policy that advises that we stay between 25 and 40% fund balance that we carry. And really, this process is a loan from ourselves, from our working cash fund, which is the fund that has the most fund balance available. And because we received the lion's share of our money in September and June, during the time period between, the reserves started to go down. So this loan to these funds allows us to keep paying our bills and keep payroll moving along. When we get under that 25% is when things get pretty tight, and if we get into May, which is our lowest point of the year, and if the state is not paying their categorical money, which, as we all know, has happened over time, we get into a position where we have to do short-term borrowing. So this is an annual process. This is a loan from our working cash fund. So until we get our tax money to allow us to keep paying our bills and paying payroll.
So to answer the second part of your question, there's no cost to doing this now. If you didn't have that.
We're not spending the money, we're just moving the money we have to a different place. I was just surprised it was 100% of our working cash funds.
It's like going from savings to checking, right?
I think, as a follow comment to that, I think that it's a reflection of how limited our reserves are. And that, we don't have, some districts have more reserves than we have. Without the 25% fund balance policy, we'd be borrowing money right now, in the marketplace, which would cost us money. So, it's a reflection truly of how limited reserve we have and how close our budgets are to break even and so on every year. So it's not a good thing. We're in effect borrowing for the money that's not going to come in until May or June of this year to operate our business today. So.
Yeah, I guess it's a good thing that we have the money, that we don't have to go outside to borrow, but it's not a good thing that we have to even borrow from ourselves because the state is lagging behind on payments. So, but at least that's my perspective on it.
I think this emphasizes the wisdom that was exercised by the board almost 4 years ago when we adopted the policy to raise the fund balance reserve to the 25 to 40% range that Bill has referenced there. Before that, we were below that amount, and every May-June time period, we're going out and borrowing money on tax and participation warrants and referring that to interest expense. So we're doing what we can to make sure that we don't have to do that again this year, but it will depend upon timely payments from the state from various funds that were owed money.
All right, are there any other questions or is there any other discussion?
I just want to again thank PTAs for contributing as much as they do to, particularly equipment, technology, and so on. I don't know where we'd be sometimes if it weren't for those contributions. So again, thank you very much to all the PTAs, and we see this consistently on every meeting.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. We miss Mr. Knicker for doing that. He used to always give us a total and a thank you, but thank you for stepping up to mention that. Are there any other questions or comments? Alrighty, then we'll call for the vote. Mrs. Sender, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bowman?
Yes.
Mr. Paulson?
Yes.
Mrs. Swanson?
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani?
Yes.
Mr. Matheson?
Yes.
Mrs. Interhart?
Yes. The consent agenda is approved. We have one action.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, those of you who have come for the presentation of the evening of teachers, you're more than welcome to stay. Otherwise, teachers and students, I'm sorry, you're more than welcome to stay, but if you would like to leave, we won't feel offended if you want to get up and go attend your meetings for the evening. So thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Oh. Okay, we have one action item tonight. It's approval of the administrative recommendation for the enrollment strategy for covered bridges apartments, and basically that is to put a boundary line in the complex. And so, Dr. Brewer, you have
I don't really have a significant amount to add other than what's been shared with the board. We originally presented this or highlighted the challenge of the board in December of 2014, and then on January 14th, we brought back to you a recommendation. That recommendation certainly was built with a lot of input, both from our enrollment committee, staff groups, as well as community groups that we visited with in both of the schools directly impacted by this boundary change. So what we'll bring to you tonight is the recommendation for approval that was presented at the January 14th meeting.
Okay. I'd like to have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation.
So moved.
Mr. Paulson.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Swanson. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to say that I think we did a wonderful job in working with both administratively and with the community on this program. And you know, there's no objectors here, which is always a good sign when we're dealing with any kind of boundary issues and so on. So, you know, I think this is a win-win all the way, and you know, it's done very effectively and proactively. Thank you for doing all that administratively.
Exactly what I was going to say, and just a question to confirm there hasn't been any further input by the community in any sense. I certainly haven't seen any emails expressing any concern.
No, we've not received any additional feedback.
Okay, if there's no other comment, I'd like to call for the roll, and board members, please vote online.
Mr. Paulson?
Yes.
Mrs. Swanson?
Yes.
Mr. Matheson?
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani?
Yes.
Mrs. Interhart?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bowman?
Yes.
Mrs. Interhart?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you, Dr. Schuler and staff, for doing such a good job in making this whole process as painless as possible for everyone involved. Next, we have oral reports, and Dr. Schuler is going to talk about our district dashboard.
In your green folder, the first draft tonight of a district dashboard. So just a little bit of background information on where this dashboard came from. In my contract, the charge that the board gave to me was to really address 5 key performance goals across the district. One focus on student learning, a focus on technology and infrastructure, a focus on professional development, training, mentoring opportunities, a challenge to continue to deliver balanced budgets, and then a focus on community engagement. I think the charge at the time coming in was the 120 days to outline exactly what those metrics look like for the Board of Education. And so what I'm presenting to you tonight is really the first look at a dashboard. This dashboard is designed to complement the Vision 2018 plan that we shared with you. And again, that Vision 2018 plan really came from the feedback we got through Engage 200, through the other goals that had been established in the district, but really attempted to capture that in kind of a clear and coherent plan to really guide our actions moving forward. And so what you see on the dashboard really are not metrics that work in any way in opposition. In fact, they very much support the efforts, the strategies that are in the Vision 2018 chart. This is just sort of a way for us to gauge on an annual basis how we're doing in these areas. So starting on the front of that, the bulk of those metrics fall in student learning. And they're areas that the board has very much monitored in the past, looking at how our students are doing on ACT, the percentage that are ready for college and career, students that are challenging themselves with rigorous coursework and advanced placement classes. We've got a couple of measures on there tied to our local assessment and performance of our K-8 students in math and reading. And then we've got a couple of metrics around graduation rate, making sure that our freshmen are on track through the first year of high school, and then a metric in social emotional learning. What I'll tell you as you read across, so I think the design of the benchmark is that the board will know our starting point, that's the baseline in each of those areas. The 2015 status is to be determined in most of these because a metric that will be filled in as we can get that data point through the year. But our intention then is to outline a 2018 goal where we want to see that growth to be. There are few to be determined in terms of the goal area, and again, part of that is because there are a couple of metrics that are still kind of in the process of being developed, and so, for instance, on the local assessments, we've been much further along in terms of where we are in math local assessments, the reading local assessments at the KA level really have put in place this year, and so it won't be until after we at least get the test scores and kind of the scores validated that we'll be able to set those metrics. So here's what I'll tell you, at least at the board level. What's on the dashboard has been looked at in some way, shape, or form by a board committee. The target, the 2018 goal, hasn't yet been reviewed by a committee, but I think our intention tonight was to put the dashboard in front of you for the first time so that you can look through it. If you've got questions after this meeting that you want a little bit of additional information or kind of validation around why we picked that metric, welcome to do so. But then our intent at the committee level is to review those 2018 targets with the hope of ultimately bringing this dashboard back in March for board approval. Everything that you've identified in my contract and asked me to build metrics around are included on the dashboard. So I don't believe that anything is missing, and I think Mr. Broman had mentioned at a previous meeting that there are a combination of some metrics on here that truly will be gauged, will be tracked through kind of a numeric performance level, and there are some things that will be tracked through the annual presentation of a plan. An example of that would be professional development. So annually, we will make sure that the board is aware of what the professional development plan is, the current efforts that are in place, and so that one will be monitored really more through just the feedback of is the plan that we've got in place, is it consistent with board expectation and direction on that. So then the last thing I guess I should mention is where you see the 2015 status. You'll notice as we begin to get data on this that there are different color codings that can go in there. That number, that 2015 status, will be green if we believe that we're on target. The board determines that we're on target with where we're going. Yellow if we're doing okay, making some progress, not quite where we want to be. And red if it's an area of concern that we're not making the progress that we would expect to make. So there'll be a little bit of a color coding on that as well. That's it.
Any discussion, any feedback from board members?
I like the the idea of this dashboard. It gives you kind of a clear view of about, I don't know, 20 different topics that we've talked about, and it gives a a benchmark and something to monitor going forward. But it's quite straightforward. It's some really basic 4 or 5 different project areas. So I think it's kind of consistent with what we call our goal setting, and it'll be interesting to fill in the blanks as we go along here and be able to monitor this as time moves forward. And I think again it's a much simpler document that can be publicized and so on to the community as well. So I'm really happy with it.
So Dr. Shu, if I understand correctly, you anticipate having each of the committees meet sometime between probably February here. For example, the Learning Committee, Finance Committee, Facilities Committee, and the Communication Committee to finalize their particular metrics.
Primarily teaching and learning. So I don't anticipate truly even in the finance metrics unless Jim Rosemary would otherwise. I think those targets really are previously approved targets that really have already been established. I'm not sure it's going to be necessary for the finance committee too, but definitely in the student learning area, I think that's definitely the committee that we're going to need to schedule a meeting to go through how we set those targets.
I was going to say just quickly, looking at quickly, it looks great. And It's interesting to me that for the student learning, none of the targets include the state testing scores, which is actually, I think, a very relevant way to go, because first of all, we don't have any trend data that we can rely on. But secondly, I do think there's something to be said for the local communities setting their own standards in terms of what is important to them. Obviously, we have to meet the state and national standards, but what is of value to the community that their students learn, this is the place to show that. And so I really appreciate having the courage to not simply distill down to how we're doing on a particular standardized assessment that may or may not reflect what we're attempting to do.
Thank you, Mrs. Swanson. And Mr. Roman and I were in a wonderful meeting with Dr. Schuler and Mrs. Dahlquist and Mrs. Ozumkowski, and talking about what data we can gather that is meaningful. And really the most meaningful data that we do have are our local assessment data, because they measure growth. And we feel that that's the best way to measure what our students are really doing. How are they growing from year to year? Not taking a different bunch of students and comparing them, to the students the year before, which is what our state assessments typically do. So we're fortunate in that we've gathered a lot of data. We've had a lot of good assessments. We've done a lot of groundwork where we have a good footing in this area. We're very comfortable with it.
To that, I think it's largely attributable to the good work of Faith and Julio. We were blown away when we met in December and the metrics that Faith and Julio, I would pronounce the last name if I could. I just refer to it as Julio. The way she presented it, and I was just really impressed.
And I think we'll get some. We're also anticipating getting some good numbers. They'll be a little fuzzy, right, for social emotional learning, but that committee is also looking at metrics and hard metrics like discipline referrals and the suspensions and all those kind of negative things that you can measure declining, because that's your goal, is to get those things to decline. But we also may include some survey data minimally on those measures as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing those come out too.
So, 2 questions. How do we share this with the community? Obviously, putting it on the website, there are other measures, ways to do that. And then secondly, is there the ability can we create the ability for people to click on certain items and see more information, historical data, an explanation of what the number means?
Yeah, great question, Brett. So I guess the first part in terms of how it will be shared out. So we are working now on a rollout plan of sharing kind of the whole package. So really, I think in terms of a Vision 2018 plan, it's the combination of the chart that you approved, highlighting the areas of focus for the next 4 years, the specific goals the board established for this year, and the dashboard that kind of work together to really comprise that whole plan. There is a section of the website now that is focused only on Vision 2018. All of these tools will be up here in addition to that. Right now, if you actually go there, I think you'll get a sense of how that will work. So in each of the areas within the Vision 2018 plan, the areas that you've identified as priorities for this year, in essence, have a hot link that would then take you to the goal chart, right, that spells it out with greater detail. I would imagine this being able to work the same way. So as we do for the board, a presentation on professional development, we then have a document that we can link to that 2015 status that would allow somebody to drill a little bit further into to learning more about that area. So I anticipate that coming. I guess, again, step one is let's get this approved, make sure we're good with what's on here, and then we'll work that detail out.
I think it's a great document. It's nice to have everything in one location and have it connected back to the vision and just let it grow and expand over time. So I'm very happy.
Anybody else? Ms. Giamiani, anything? Just, we haven't heard from you. You're the only one so far, so I thought, let me call on you and see if you've got anything on the dashboard. I think it's good too. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Great job. And again, if you have any thoughts, further thoughts on the actual metric that is being used, make sure you get that information to Dr. Schuler, because we will be asked to approve this as a, formal document going forward in March. Great, thank you very much. And now, professional learning community progress update. Dr. Schuler?
I'm going to turn this over to Faith, who's going to share with the board a quick update on where we are with professional learning communities.
The screen is difficult to see because some of the graphs get a little detailed, or you may have your back to the screen. There are paper copies there at your seats as well. So January has happened, and as you know, we give a survey out to all staff to kind of report out on the progress. This is the third year that we've been doing that. So I'm here tonight to tell you about some of those results. Before I go into the information and the data from that survey, I want to remind everyone really what the PLC thing is all about. Some schools and districts have seen professional learning communities and just kind of slap that on a label for this is what teams get together and do, and this is what they plan, but we've been very structured and very purposeful about this time, that teachers that teach the similar course or the same grade level get together and really work on 4 key questions over and over again during their PLC time, and it's about getting very exact about what we want students to know and be able to do, and that can be academics, that can be social emotional, all of those things. What do we really want our students to know, be able to do? Second question is, what does success look like? How are we going to measure that? What are we going to test? What are we going to give in a performance-based assessment? How are we going to know? And then after we have that data back, what do we do for those students that didn't get it? What do we do for those students that were well in advance of that to provide that differentiation? So why we need this PLC thing now more than ever, there's a lot of change going on in education, whether it's Common Core Math, Common Core ELA, we're trying to change some grading practices, especially at elementary level. We're working on instructional practices. We've got brain research. We're working on instructional technology. There's so much that staff needs support to do that. Just the daunting task of finishing those questions, 3 and 4, what do we do for those students that are above and below? If each teacher faces that daunting task of providing that differentiating instruction alone, it's almost impossible. So we really have to look at it as a team and pool those resources and work together on that. And a lot of just in the nick of time professional development happens during those meetings as they're sharing best practices and finding out what works. I also want to highlight with our new document, the Vision 2018, I kind of quickly put some arrows in there, where all the PLCs impact that document as well. With all the things that we are attempting, PLCs impact all of those areas. So the PLC data that I'm going to share, principals got their data just by their school a while ago, and the data that they had is just from classroom teachers. Now we do have psychologists and social workers, and all of those are on PLCs as well, but this is really looking at classroom teacher data. And the data is broken down by level. And again, these are the exact same questions that we began asking December, January 12, 13, and then we have the data from last year, and then the final column in each of those areas for 14, 15. One of the things that I think is kind of the most exciting on this first data slide is the piece at the bottom, the common formative assessment for agreed upon standards. And if you look at where we were in elementary, you got to remember elementary was doing brand new standards in math, and we were really, really pushing and working hard on that. It's also a smaller group. Pretty strong from the beginning, continuing to get there. Look at the growth that has been made at middle school, but I really want to celebrate high school this evening. If you look at where they were in 12-13, where we had 8% of the staff had used the common formative assessment with their PLCs on where that looks, and now we're at 71%. Again, this is the staff reporting out their own progress on this, and it took a while to gain some momentum. High schools are very large
And you have a lot of people getting together and working on this, but we're continuing to see that buy-in and some of that momentum building, especially at the high school level. The next slide is where we really get into changing practices in instruction. And it's there where teams are doing a bunch of different things with this data. Not only are they figuring out what are we going to do for those students above and below, we begin the really difficult work of let's compare your data, my data. Say Bob and I are teaching together, maybe Bob's data was really better on what he taught than mine. I may have some reflecting to do. I need to pick his brain. I need to think about that and exchange best practices in instruction. And that is a difficult thing for all of us to do, is really reflect on our own practices and use that data to change things. So if you look through the data that is there, we are definitely making some strides again at meeting the needs of those students that are below, and we're beginning to make a lot more progress on meeting those students that are above. On the last piece of data, I do want to report out that staff had more than just yes or no options on this. And the last column and the last row across is the percentage of staff that's saying yes, PLCs have caused an increase in student learning. There's also a category right underneath that that I didn't report out for simplicity's sake that says we need more time. No, not yet, or those kinds of things. And we have a very small percentage of staff that's saying no. We have quite a bit of staff that's still saying we need some more time to make this work. So while those numbers are may appear low or may appear high to you, I do need to explain that there's also another range of questions. So, celebrations. Staff continues to embrace PLCs. As I go around and with my team and we visit classrooms and we find out, hey, what is happening? This is great stuff that you, most often they will report back to. We're working together as a team to get this done, and this was a team effort, and we really like the PLC time. It is also proving to be that really professional, powerful tool where we only have a limited number of institute days, we only have a limited number of faculty meeting time, but this is helping our teachers really get better at the art and the craft of teaching. With the data also came some things for us to address. We realized that we had some PLCs that are still struggling with some of those norms or what to do when that's broken, so some of the principals are going back and addressing that. And then we also saw that some of our PLCs haven't been going through the process of choosing that standard, doing the common assessment that we want them to do with the number of standards that we want them to. So the principals are in the process, and it was due today, and they're coming in as we speak, that the principals went through, and we shared with them in October that we wanted them to do this, but they're reporting out what each of those formative assessments were on, how many that they've done, and really following up with those PLCs so that we can address that and provide support when we can. Kind of next steps that we need to take, continuing to look at the data and support, but now we have so many people that are doing it. As we get new staff on board, we've really got to make sure that they understand that this is how District 200 operates. As we bring in new principals, making sure that they don't lose the ground or the understanding that we've gained in the last 2 years on this. And then the last item that I wanted to put a plug in for is finding more time to do these PLCs. Certainly at the elementary level, we got really creative with most of our buildings this year to find some more time to do that. But as teams are getting into this, they are really seeing the benefit of that really focused time around student achievement and use of data. And that, I think I kept it under my time limit, but I was talking a mile a minute. If you have questions, I'll be glad to entertain them.
I just wonder, are these PLCs by building, or are they district-wide?
Most are by building. For example, at an elementary school, the third grade teachers together would be a PLC. However, At an elementary school, you may only have one PE teacher, and then we have them cross-district-wide to do that. But for the most part, as long as there aren't just one teacher by themselves, they are building-based PLCs.
So under that assumption then, I assume that some schools are more accepted or more successful or whatever our unit of measure is here, others aren't. How do we address that when that happens?
Well, one of the things that I do is I go through individually with all of the PLC data, and there are some anomalies that stick out. It's usually not an entire school. It's more of, well, here's a PLC that is struggling within that. But I did have some principals that I did call and say, hey, your data looks a little low on this, explain it to me and have a further conversation. Also had some outliers of real great successes that I could call and say, what's going on, how do we have that spread across the district. So we do look at it individually by school. I also look at it individually by some of the PLCs that principals are able to identify, and then we do provide support for those that are struggling.
Faith, I noticed that particularly in the second slide that some of the percentages began to drop this past year. Do you have any sense of why that's happening?
Yes, I was concerned with the elementary piece of the change in instruction, because I'm like, we were at 87%, why are we at 80? And I had a lot of conversations with principals, and a couple of different answers emerged. One of which is we had a set level of standards that we wanted PLCs to go through and do, and a couple of PLCs at a school took the end of the year number of standards that we were supposed to accomplish, not mid-year, and then answered everything as, well, we're not there yet. So that was an issue. But we also had identified a school that really felt like last year, when they got into really knowing what it took to change instruction, they honestly did rate themselves lower this year, and said we really should have said last year that we weren't quite there yet either. So as they got more of an understanding of what that meant, they were harder on themselves.
Faith, I've got a question. Clarity, the last item was, has the use of PLCs caused increased student learning? And obviously there's marked improvement, but I was just my question is, where did they get the data from the student level to justify, yes, it's impacted student learning? To me, that's kind of the holy grail, that if we could actually zero in and narrow it into the fact that the grades improved, the GPA, whatever it may be, whatever that standard of that measurement is. So can you kind of expand upon that?
This isn't something that's measured by park. This isn't something that is off of a district assessment, because that happens mid-year and you don't have it until the next time around, and this is smaller increments in this. So this is really based off of the teachers' assessments that they commonly give, and see if this process has indeed caused an increase in student learning. I know I always pick elementary examples, but just how we were working on sight words at a particular school in first grade. They had last year of, how many first graders knew sight words by such and such time. Then they got together and talked about how can we intervene, how can we provide more interventions, and like this year, a lot higher percentage of our first graders knew the sight words that they needed to have by the end of first trimester. So that's some of that data, but this is teacher reported. This is not off of a particular assessment that I can say, here's where they were and here's where they are now. It is also really difficult to say that student learning happened just because of this, because at the same time, we're instituting new vocabulary practices. At the same time, we're going through and we're looking on the reading framework to make sure that we're providing guided reading at all of those different levels. So It is a really difficult task to say this is exactly what caused that. I think that the teacher reflection piece is more of how are they feeling about their instruction and how are they seeing students even within a 2 or 3 week window improving on what they had done in the past.
One other comment here. I'm looking at that again, that data, similar to where Jim was just pointing out. And it says, particularly in the high school level, it says better meets the needs of students who don't meet the standard, and then correspondingly that it doesn't meet the students who are already mastered the standard. And we're looking under, I could say in certain respects that 80% of the staff doesn't think it does it good. If that's the way I read it. Is there a point where we say PLC is not working at the high school level, or what is the reflection here? What is the alternative? I'm not looking at that number and feeling good.
I'm glad you asked that question. The way that the question is asked to the staff is, has your PLC, so has their group of teachers, used the data to better meet the needs of students who have already mastered that standard? So the first thing we've got to have PLCs do is agree on what it is they're going to teach, give the assessment, get the data together, figure that out. This is saying that they have not yet used the practice of using data and changing their practices for those students that are above level. So this is how they're saying in their implementation of the process where they're at. Not that they've done it and that it only worked. That it's only 18% are saying that it worked. But this is, have they used that process to meet the needs of those students that are above the learning standard or above the target? So it's not whether it's working or not, it's whether they've utilized and gotten to that fourth question on the PLCs, or are they still working at getting it right for the general students and using assessment to change instruction.
Okay, I guess I understand that, but again, I'm looking at the raw piece of saying that only 18% or 23% think it's a good function. I guess there's a lot of impact about the time commitment and so on related to PLCs. Are we better spending time elsewhere, or what's the solve here? That data to me is not make me happy, I guess is my point.
And again, it's not that the 18% are saying that it's working, it's 18% are saying that they've gotten that far in using the PLC process for that. Anecdotally, when you talk to staff, there is now not all PLCs, but there is a buy-in that here's the process where we need to get to. If you look at the first graph with a common formative assessment for agreed upon standards, we've just got 71% of staff at the high school saying, yes, we're doing that. And that's the first, that's the first piece. And last year we were only at 40. Then using that data, are they changing it for instruction? And then after you're using that data, are you getting better at saying, okay, we've already taught this, how are we going to differentiate it for those students that are above or for below? So I do think that more time is needed for staff at the high school level to attempt that and to try that, and have training on that and support on that, to say that it's not working when they haven't yet done that level, I think is misleading.
Maybe could we have just a little background about what the different dynamics are at the high school level versus middle versus elementary that might cause that sort of scenario?
Sure. The high schools set upon the very, very difficult process of getting the chemistry teachers from South and the chemistry teachers from North to agree on what the standards are. That in alone takes a lot more time than the fourth grade teachers, getting together, and they already had, here are your math standards, because here's Common Core, we're done, and here are the new ELA standards, here you go. But in science, we had to really revamp and rethink at the high school level, okay, what are those standards going to be, and then try to have both high schools agree on what those standards is a much more time-consuming process to do that. At that same time, we were talking about, well, what should finals look like? What should common ending assessments look like? where we had district-provided ending assessments at elementary and at middle in key subjects. So that process is a lot more laborious at the high school to get that done. Also, just for a little history, we've gone through this before at other districts. High schools in general take a lot more time for teachers to work together collaboratively as a team. That's not a reflection of their practices. It's just more, this is my content area, I'm an expert, and that whole we're going to share students and share ideas is a little bit easier at the elementary level when I've got my 32 kids and my 28 kids, whereas I have 125 students, and we're going to go through all that data. It does move more slowly at the high school level, and if you talk to districts that have gone through this, that are unit districts, the elementary piece goes a little bit faster than the middle school, and it goes a little bit faster than the high school piece. If you talk to districts that have gone through this, even if they're just high school districts, 4 to 7 years is really where they say you've got to keep working at this before you're working through all of those levels at the high school.
I have a kind of a follow-up question to that, and that is, on the better meeting the needs of the students who already have or know the material before going on. I mean, could the low response to that at the high school level be an effect of actually having more homogeneous groupings versus the heterogeneous mixture you have in the elementary or middle school? I mean, I would assume that when you're in an A-level English class, you don't have that wide range of students where you have some who just get it immediately and some who don't get it at all. I would imagine you've got kids who are at least closer together. They might not be, and I don't know, I'm just kind of surmising.
You're correct that there's already some differentiating just by the types of classes that high school has, where you don't have 6th grade math, you have all sorts of math classes. But even within that, you're going to have those students that are already had it when they walked in the door, and those students that struggle with it. So this idea of differentiation and meeting the needs of all of us would happen in all of our classes, regardless of how homogeneously they would be grouped.
So I have the hardest question. If the biggest roadblock is time, how do we create more time? Is it just like change the schedule? It seems like that's a daunting task if that's what the teachers say what the biggest roadblocks are.
It is a difficult question, and we've worked around it creatively at a lot of the elementary schools by sometimes having a social emotional assembly where you're teaching that way and releasing teachers to go do some of this work while that happens. Some other creative things that buildings have done have had reading buddies between 4th grade and 1st grade, and this Friday when they got together to read, not all of the 1st grade and the 4th grade teachers stayed in the room. 4th grade left and worked on that, so we found some of that. So there's still educational opportunities and things that are going on, but finding some creative ways to release time for that. There are other districts that do delayed starts and things for elementaries, but that's really problematic for parents and buses and all kinds of things. So we need to continue to work creatively to provide that. The current contract where faculty meeting time is just 8:30 to 9, and that's your time in the morning. There's not a lot of really great PLC conversations that can happen in 25 minutes. So we're working creatively to find time for them to do that.
Good question. No, any other questions, comments? Thank you. That was a very good presentation, and thank you for continuing to lead the PLC effort. I think it's demonstrated that our students are benefiting from it. Okay, we have 2 written reports tonight, the monthly financial reports and the freedom of information request. Are there any questions from board members on the written reports? Okay, reports from board members, board committee reports. Are there any committees? I think we've seen a lot of committee reports reflected in Vision 2018 dashboard, but if there's anything else anybody would care to report? Okay, other reports from board members. I just had one. I wanted to thank my fellow board members for contributing to the new 200 Foundation. Really appreciate that, and want to recognize everyone here for their wonderful contribution and support. The foundation appreciates your consideration, and I think we're really making some progress. So thank you very, very much. Topics for future discussion: the district dashboard, technology update, social emotional learning, and professional development report. Our next regular meeting will be March 11th, 2015 at 7:30 at Wheaton North High School. Are there any public comments on non-agenda items? There are none. So then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mrs. Swanson. Seconded by Mr. Matheson. Mrs. Sender, will you call the roll on all board members? Oh, would you all in favor of this? Okay. All in favor, and please vote online. Opposed? No opposition, so this meeting is adjourned. Board members, please vote online.